Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lowe. On this show, we've been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Rennie Harlin, featuring aquatic action or sharks, and very much a shark film today because we're talking about Shark Tale. Tale spelled T-A-L-E, because grammar. What is Shark Tale? Well, it's 2004 Dreamworks animated film starring Will Smith as a cleaner of wrasse fish who gets confused to being a shark killer when he is nearby when a shark dies. And so he befriends vegetarian shark Jack Black to kind of con everyone into thinking he's a famous guy. Meanwhile, Renee Zellweger as Angie is an angelfish who fancies Will Smith. And Angelina Jolie is a lionfish who is, the film calls out she's a gold digger. It's introduced as a character. We'll get there. It's fine. And there's Robert De Niro's a mob boss shark. Martin Scorsese's in it. We'll get into the whole cast. There's a bunch of people in this film. It's directed by Vicky Jensen, Biber Bergeron, and Rob Letterman. Written by Michael J. Wilson, Rob Letterman, and additional dialogue by Scott Aukerman from the Comedy Bang Bang podcast. So that's nice. And we're going to talk about Shark Tale today. So I need a guest to help talk about that. So normally we space guest appearances out, but I wanted to talk about this film, and other people didn't. I had a tough time finding a guest, so I just messaged everyone saying, "Anyone want to talk about Shark Tale?" And she replied, which I'm very happy that she did because I couldn't think of anyone better to talk about Shark Tale with. Because she's back. She was on recently to talk about The Deep, and been on before to talk about Ghost Shark and Shark in Venice. These are all very different kinds of shark film because she is proving, when it comes to shark films, like Pink, she goes with everything. It's Emily Slade. Emily, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. A shark connoisseur, a connoisseur.
Sure. Shark connoisseur. I don't know how we would amalgamate those two words. Portmanteau, shark and connoisseur. Connoisseur? No. We'll workshop that.
A connoisseur. Yeah. Send us your suggestions.
We'll workshop that more than some of the puns in Shark Tale were workshopped. So, so Shark Tale. What's your history with this film? Why were you willing, happy, or accepting to come and talk about it?
Yeah, because you pitched it in a sort of group meet of like, oh God, I need someone to talk about Shark Tale. Has anyone talked about Shark Tale? And to respond to that, I started quoting Shark Tale, and everybody was like, why are you quoting Shark Tale? And I was like, does one not quote Shark Tale on a
No.
daily basis? Because I do. Now, please don't mistake me for somebody who likes this movie. It's a 2004 DreamWorks car crash, and DreamWorks, I love the history of DreamWorks and Disney. I was of the age where I would have been seeing these movies as they were coming out in cinemas, just because I came from quite a cinema-centric family and they were kids' movies, so I was put in front of them. And some were massive, massive hits from this studio in the early 2000s. Looking at You, Road to El Dorado, and Shrek 2. And some of them were big misses, such as this one. And this is actually what I like to think is one of the first ever misses. And even as a child, it was this and Racing Stripes, which possibly is a DreamWorks, but it's more live action. It was when a zebra became like a racehorse. And I remember them as like definitive moments in my childhood of being like, this sucks. It was like my introduction to film criticism, because as a kid I was like, this is bad. This is a bad movie. I don't care for it. I don't like it, but I can't quite put my finger on it yet. However, here I am to finally be able to put every single one of my fingers on it.
Outstanding. So yeah, I don't have that history with it. I've seen this film once before, I think. We have it on DVD somewhere, but I cannot find it anywhere.
I think every
And
charity shop has a copy of this on DVD, at least one.
well, fortunately, it is on Netflix, at least in the UK. So that's good. Racing Stripes, not a DreamWorks film, it was a Warner Brothers picture, I
Ah,
think.
well,
Warner
it was not
Brothers
included in the
sucked.
tour when I went round last October, so they're missing out.
Well, you should write them a note saying we need more Racing Stripes
Racing Stripes.
representation on your WB tour. But yeah, so I've never seen Road to El Dorado. Is that one
Oh
I'm
my goodness.
missing?
Okay, so unfortunately now it's like incredibly problematic from a
Oh,
colonial
great.
stance. Um, but it's so good. It's Kenneth Branagh and Kevin Kline as two Spaniards who wind up actually accidentally in El Dorado, and they manage to convince the people that live there that they are in fact gods. And it's got songs by Elton John and the sexiest flippin' woman in an animated movie ever, with the best voice actress. It's the cop from Birds of Prey. She's the
Rosie
voice
Perez.
actress.
Rosie
Yeah, oh my
Perez.
goodness, she's absolutely phenomenal. The songs are outstanding. The animal comedy is like top tier. The jokes, the physical comedy, it's just fantastic in every way, to the point where it's what me and my best friends in the whole wide world that I met at university bonded over, and we all had little armadillo necklaces to like with our initials on to like for the bond, for the El Dorado bond. We quoted it every day of our lives, and but of course there is now the sort of, you look back at it and you're like, is this okay? Like, is this right? Is this historically like correct? Is this problematic in any way? Like, there's definitely arguments to be had about it, and conversations to be had about it. But as a child watching it, I was like, this is up there with Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's phenomenal. Whereas Shark Tale was my sister's favorite DreamWorks movie, so she quotes it all the time, which is why I was able to quote it, because every day of her life she's like, true story, because she was a huge Jack Black fan, I think, is why that was the case. And this is basically an introduction to the cast of Kung Fu Panda. Like, basically all of these people
Sure.
then go on to just be in Kung Fu Panda, which then garnered like 9 sequels and is actually really good.
I mean,
Um,
the first Kung Fu Panda is one of the best animated films, in my opinion. I
it's
freaking love
incredible. And the
it.
second one is amazing. I've not rewatched the third recently, and I've heard the fourth is a bit up in the air, but that might just be because it's like, hey everyone, it's not for you anymore. Leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only seen two and three once each, I think. But no,
Hmm.
like the Tai Lung escape sequence
Oh
in
my
one
goodness.
is like I love prison escape sequences in films. Like Deep Blue Sea
Hmm.
is a prison escape film.
Nice,
And just
yes.
watching a snow leopard doing kung fu to escape a
Yeah,
prison,
it's so
like
good.
more of this. Give me an hour of that.
And it
Uh,
really tapped in as well into these sort of big, wider, scopy, sort of found family aspects and inner worth and all of this stuff. And whereas this movie,
yes, going back to Shark Tale.
what? It's like, it's as, it's the deepest part is how underwater we get. That needed to be worked to come out better. But this movie's shallow, is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm gonna let you take over and host as you usually do, but for realsies, that my main feedback on this movie, as much as I quote it because it is hella quotable, that's it. That's all they've got. They've got quotes from, and you know what? For Shrek 2, the DVD of Shrek 2 had an advert for Shark Tale. So I know that trailer off by heart. So there are certain lines in this movie that I was like Proustian momenting over. But it wants to be what Shrek 2 did to Hollywood with Far Far Away, and it wants to be what Hercules did to that sort of pop culture, sports culture, fame, celebrity culture. And I don't think any of those movies, Shrek 2 possibly does it the best, and Hercules really tried to make a point. I can't quite tell you what it is just yet, but this movie has no point whatsoever, is what I'll begin with. Please host this
Yeah,
episode.
well, I guess the point would be like fame and fortune's not all it's cracked up to be.
But and like
Uh,
fair
but
enough, like that, like a movie for children. This is the thing as well. I wrote so many things where I was like, what I I'm torn because movies for children, animated movies for children, don't have to have a moral center. They don't have to have a lesson. They don't have to give out, they can just be fun, silly movies for fun, silly movies' sake. Like I do really think I believe that in my core, but this isn't even good in that respect. Like, it's not even a good silly, and I can't actually think. of a fun, silly, shallow movie that doesn't have a heart. Even the movies that are detrimental to your upbringing. I showed one of my favorite animated movies to my friend for my own podcast a while back, and she turned to me halfway through and was like, I feel like I understand you even better now. This is where all of your problems come from. Everything that's wrong
So
with you got from this movie. Like, you literally took these as lessons and took them into your life as an adult, and it's been ridiculous and so regressive, and it's all from this movie. And it was Thumbelina by Don Bluth, if anyone
I
cared. Don't show
was
your
going to say
kids Thumbelina.
you have to tell us what the film is. I was going to
Do
say.
not show your kids Thumbelina by Don Bluth. I love it to pieces. I think it's a masterpiece. My God, did it not give me good dating advice? The child that I subconsciously took on. And most children won't watch a movie and then be like, oh, well, I need to do that, or I need to internalize that in any way. But I 100% internalized every lesson from Thumbelina, and it was bad. It was not good. But at least in Thumbelina, they try and give you lessons of like, follow your heart, as dangerous as that might be. And, you know, be kind and decent, and singing is fun, and Gilbert Gottfried is an icon. But here, who the hell are we rooting for? I don't give a shit about Oscar. Like, he's
Yeah, it's
awful,
hard
and
to.
I hate
He
him.
is terrible. um, I agree. He's not even like nice, fun to be around. He's so, as the kids say today, he's so cringe.
He's
Like
so
when he's
cringe.
because he's just always performing all the time, in front of no one who wants to be performed at. He's
Yeah.
borrowing money for these get rich quick schemes that never work. He's, I mean, when you hear his backstory that he idolized his dad was a worked at the whale wash for 25 years, and Oscar thought it was great, and they went to school and everyone laughed at him because his dad was that. I kind of feel like, oh, I feel sorry for you, but then they don't really expand
Mm.
upon that much.
This is the thing, and
Like,
then there's a shallow nod to his dad at the very end of the movie.
yeah, with
But
the picture.
if the dad, what happened to the dad? Is he dead, or is he just somewhere else in the reef and we never get to meet him? And this is what's interesting as well when you compare this to the other animation studio that was doing a fish underwater based movie at the same time,
Pixar, hell
and
yes.
that is entirely a father son
Yeah.
relationship, and the importance of it. And I think I even wrote, I was like, imagine animating the shrimp cheerleading to fish Christina Aguilera singing Car Wash at the end
Yep.
of this movie, and over on the other side of Burbank you've got someone animating like Marlin being reunited with Nemo, thinking he's dead at the bottom of this like fish net, and he's like and like it's just utterly ridiculous. And no shade, because like I feel that you could pull anything out and say it like that, and you'd be like, oh, we were trying to make a point for point's sake. But it's so interesting that Shark Tale alludes to this father son relationship being the emotional core of this movie, and then does nothing with it. And then the other fish animated movie from 2003/4 actually completely invests in the father son relationship in the most beautiful, heartbreaking way possible. So, but then, there's no need for them to do that. But it just means that there's no heart. And I imagine if you got Jeffrey Katzenberg in a room, which I've been in a room with Jeffrey Katzenberg, and I didn't ask him about Shark Tale, to be fair. I wasn't allowed to talk or even look at him. It was by accident. But I just feel that if you asked him what the heart of um Shark Tale would be, he'd be like, "Oh, it's Angie. Like Angie's the heart." But like all I do throughout this movie for Angie, the Renee Zellweger shitfish, is feel sorry for her and wish that she got a better boyfriend, and
Yeah.
absolutely just feel awful that she's stuck with this ugly Will Smith miss. It's just heartbreaking all over again. This is the heartbreak.
I yeah, she has no chill to hide her massive crush on this guy. Uh,
Mm.
but I do feel very sorry for her. He's charismatic, I guess, Oscar,
Nah, I
because
don't. Again,
but only in
as
a Will Smith voicing him kind of way.
this is the thing. Like, luckily, Will Smith's charm seeps through into the character, and that's clearly what they were banking on. Whereas the characters of Shrek are bigger than their voice actors, and that's why that movie is so successful, and it's why it has a tourist attraction in the heart of London. Shark Tale isn't even in the post Shrek bit. Um, n- I don't. I'm referring, sorry, to Shrek's Adventure London, which is a batch flow tourist attraction run by Merlin Attractions on the South Bank in London, and it all about Shrek 4 for some reason. And you go through, and then at the end, you meet Shrek, and then you go into other rooms, and you get to go to a Kung Fu Panda room and a How to Train Your Dragon room, and what else was it? There's like one more. There's no Prince of Egypt room and there's no Road to El Dorado room, which I'm very sad about, but I'm not quite sure what they put in the Prince of Egypt room. Maybe you get to like pick up a lamb leg covered in blood and swipe it across your door frame to hope that the Lord misses you out when he's killing the firstborn. I always tried to pitch that as a thing, but they didn't really love it. They wanted another Kung Fu Panda room. It's fine.
Sure,
I get it.
that makes
But
sense. Yes.
so Shark Tale is even forgotten by its own creators. And I think it just alludes to how flippin' shallow it is, because also the Roger Ebert review of this was like, and I completely agree, what kid, as you said in your intro, this movie has Robert De Niro as this like mob boss shark leader. Martin Scorsese is his like underling, doing a fantastic voice
Yes,
acting job, I may
absolutely.
add. Like, shout out to Martin. Love the like, love love it in theory, but it's just, what kid? And don't get me wrong, I know that we were in an era of animated movies that were making references that children didn't understand. However, there's a way to do it. There's a way to appeal to your adult audience while still fulfilling your child's animated movie role. And Zootopia is a brilliant example because Zootopia leans very heavily on Godfather stuff.
Yeah.
When we meet that little shrew and he's like, "You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding," it actually is the day of his daughter's wedding. So if you're a kid, you're like, cool, yeah, the shrew vole thing is having his daughter's wedding. If you're an adult, you understand that that's a Godfather reference.
And
Shark
it's
Tale
inherently
doesn't.
funny that the
Yeah,
Godfather is a tiny little shrew.
yeah,
That's like,
yeah. It's a very very small thing in this world of enormous carnivorous animals. And so the visual joke is there, and then the like actual follow through of stuff is there, where you're like, yeah, I'm a child. I don't give a yeah. The fucking kid is, it's his wedding. It's the wedding. It's the wedding. It's the wedding of his daughter. Whereas here, there's a million Godfather references. There's a Goodfellas reference. There's oh, it feels like there should be a Taxi Driver reference because Scorsese and De Niro are like in scenes together, but there isn't. But they're really trying to lean heavily into this. The sharks hold a hideout place is the Titanic
and it's
for
got the picture of Rose on the wall.
for no reason. For no reason other than like, as an adult person in the audience, you can go, haha, it's the
Yeah.
Titanic. But there's nothing beyond that. And even Oscar then refers to it later in the movie. He like points it out, like, why are you held up in the love boat? Which, like, RIP to everyone that died on the RMS Titanic, for like Will Smith fish to refer to it as the love boat. And even the old shark is like, let's do that song from Titanic. So the movie Titanic exists in the world where the sharks live on the Titanic and they know of it. They know the movie has reached the depths of the ocean. Are there reefs near the
Well,
Mariana
okay.
Trench? I don't know.
This
Maybe I'm
is
thinking too much about Shark Tale, but like, point is, it's dumb.
the trying to work out the world of Shark Tale will make your brain run out of your nose.
Hmm.
Just because, yeah, there's references. Like at one point, Will Smith does Oscar does a bunch of film references. He says, "Are you not entertained? You can't handle the truth. You had me at hello." Cut to the fish voiced by Renee Zellweger.
Yeah. I
Like,
wrote that in my notes, and this is the thing. I literally wrote, "Does this suck or do I love it?" I don't know. I don't know because
yeah.
it
This is
felt
the
subtle, and this movie is not subtle. But him cutting to the Renee Zellweger fish and I've not even seen Jerry Maguire. Is that line from?
It is.
And
Excellent film. It's worth your time, I would say.
oh, nice. I'll give it a go. Obviously it's always in top 100 quotes of all time kind of stuff. So I've seen her do that bit. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I understand that. I think that's wonderful. There's layers to it and it felt right. So I kind of enjoyed that. But then they try and do it with other things and it's like a miss. Whereas like that felt like a bit of a hit. It didn't feel like a hit until it cut to the Renee Zellweger fish, and then I was like, "Oh, I enjoyed that." I wouldn't be surprised if somebody pitched it in order to do the Renee Zellweger bit. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe, and this is whereas Finding Nemo is just
Mm.
like, hey, what if fish could talk? And that's the
Mm.
end of the parallels. I mean, yeah, they have a school. Mr. Ray has a school. There's like a community on the reef, that kind of thing. But in the world of Shark Tale, there are shops, there are restaurants, there is a sushi bar.
Oh my goodness,
And,
that is genuinely funny though. Like that's
yes,
in
my
the opening
favorite
we're
joke of the
going
film.
around like LA on the LA reef, which is what this is meant to be. It's meant to be like LA again because
Yeah,
everything's meant to be LA. And yeah, and we're going around and it's genuinely quite an interesting intro showcasing this world and the fun little things that they've come up with. And we go into a sushi bar where all the music dies down and it's completely deserted. And then the guy screams behind the counter and we come out again and we carry on our tour.
yep,
Genuinely funny. Like
yes,
DreamWorks,
agreed.
this is what you were built on. This is like you're not funny. The Road to El Dorado is funny. The Prince of Egypt has good jokes. They've got Martin Short and Steve Martin up in that movie, like bringing the jokes amongst the genocide. And it's great. Shrek obviously is funny. Like we know that this company can produce good films and good jokes and and imaginative scenarios. What the hell is happening here? What is going on?
Yeah, and we've got like there's the Hollywood Walk of Fame with just pun names of like Cod Stewart and like where
Great
I mean
stuff.
I would argue whether that's great stuff or not. Like I feel like
So, if this movie had more substance, if it was more thoughtful, and if it had a better message, that would be great stuff. Because we see that kind of stuff in Shrek all the time, and we allow it because the deeper messages and the storytelling is so much better that we can have, when the fairy godmother comes forward and she goes, Princess and the Pea, The Little Mermaid, Pretty Women, no ogres. Like, that's funny because we're like, haha, Pretty Women isn't a fairy tale by the Grimm brothers. Like, that's silly, DreamWorks. What are you doing bringing your modern punny references into La La La? But it's because everything else in that movie is so wonderfully put together and genuinely funny and heartwarming that we're like, great stuff. Hod Stewart is funny and it's not fair that it's not seen as funny just because the rest of the movie sucks. And it's a real shame because I feel like this movie could have had potential. I don't know what the movie is, but maybe I'm being defensive because it has the exact same plot as my favorite movie of all time, aka the best movie ever made, aka the masterpiece that is, of course, 1996's Dragonheart, where man teams up with monster and they pretend to kill each other for money to showcase to the people like the con of that. It's the same movie fundamentally. Dragonheart's obviously incredible and Shark Tale is shallow and rubbish, but maybe that's why I'm being defensive of it.
considered this was the parallels between this and Dragonheart. Of course, you're the right person to talk about this film. But along with Cod Stewart, we also have Muscle Crow, Jessica Shrimpson, and Seal, in which there's a starfish posing on the star, and then a big seal lands on him. That's the joke.
I wondered why I'd forgotten. I have a big caps lock line of notes that
Yeah,
just say
that's why.
seal,
That's the seal.
and I'd forgotten why. But there we go. Thank
It's
you for
that the
reminding me.
opening 5 minutes is just an onslaught of puns, and I
Which is fun.
I'm normally here for puns.
And now, this is the thing though. It's fun because I'm 32 and I don't care about this movie, and I'm like, haha, I get it. If I'm 12, do I get it? Do I get Muscle Crowe at 12 years old to then reference him again later in a
Sure, yeah.
Gladiator joke that I shouldn't understand? And this is the thing, I think I can't remember if I finished my point, but the film critic and myself believe that There so many adult references that children are just not going to understand. They're just not going to get them. They've not seen Goodfellas, they've not seen The Godfather. They don't understand. And they could have lent into that aesthetic and that vibe in a funny kid-friendly way. And they lean into it a little bit where he's on the phone and he's like, "You'll be sleeping with the fishes, the
Yes.
dead ones." Like it's funny, and like kids know enough of like zeitgeist and osmosis to vaguely understand things. I mean it showcases itself where this movie opens with the Jaws theme tune. How many children going to see Shark Tale in 2004 will have seen Jaws? However, they probably haven't seen Psycho, but do we understand when somebody's coming up with behind somebody else with a knife, you go, "Eh." Like, I kind of understand the justification of like, even though they wouldn't have seen Jaws, we kind of get it, and they kind of explain it where they're like, "It's our theme tune," but I still think kids are just going to be like, "What? I
And
don't
like having
what?"
Michael Imperioli voice Frankie the shark doing that theme tune, it's a nice kind of it's a nod to The Sopranos because obviously he's Christopher Moltisanti in Sopranos. But also,
Oh, that's interesting because James Gandolf, the main guy in The Sopranos, he was meant to be the Robert De Niro character, but he had to pull out because of scheduling conflicts, and Robert De Niro got replaced at the last minute. So clearly, they were meant to just
yeah,
be like the Soprano sharks.
yeah. Well, you have Vincent Pastore is the Luca, the shrimp, the squid guy.
Hmm.
He's also in Sopranos and Goodfellas, as is Michael Imperioli is also in Goodfellas as well. He's Spider.
Oh, there you go.
Um, um, a small role, but he's the one who dances and gets shot by Joe Pesci. Anyway, those two are just good actors playing Italian mob bosses. So the fact that if you don't recognize they're from The Sopranos, it's still they're still doing a good job. But
Mm,
just like that adult level of understanding the joke is more for that.
mm.
It's more for the adults than the kids, I guess. But yeah, Martin Scorsese is maybe the MVP of the film as a kind of pufferfish, porcupine fish kind of guy with Scorsese's eyebrows. This fish has
Yes.
the same eyebrows as the guy, and just yeah, the banter between him and De Niro's character, like the what, you
Ye-
said what? Those scenes they work. And
Yes, they
I
do.
really hope they recorded them together. I just imagine these
Oh,
two like older guys going into recording studio, just having fun for an afternoon.
yeah.
That's what I hope.
That's the thing. The sort of PG-ness of bringing these very heavy cinematic icons together to do this a silly parody of themselves is very fun. It's very early of that thing happening. Stop me if I'm wrong, but like 2004, this movie did a lot of walking so a lot of things could then go on to run. It didn't walk in the right direction or in a way that was like good or aesthetically pleasing, but like it definitely did a lot of walking for things to later go and run. So it's funny. It's like I understand the thought process behind it. It just didn't have enough time in the writing room, maybe, or they just didn't think through enough about the meaning behind what they were doing or what they would. I don't think anybody knew what they wanted to really say with this movie. And that's why it feels shallow, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they were trying to say anything. I think they were just like, "Hey, we can do this is a fun idea for a film. Let's do that."
But then
And that's
they've come off the back of these. I don't know if you've seen The Prince of Egypt,
no, I haven't.
mate.
I've seen very few DreamWorks outside of the like Shrek, Madagascar. Is Ice Age DreamWorks?
No,
I don't think it
that
is.
was Blue
No,
Sky.
so outside of the Shreks and the Madagascars of the world, I have not seen very many DreamWorks
This
animated
is the thing.
films.
When they
Actually,
first got off the bat, they obviously did Ants to coincide with Bugs Life, and Ants is
sure,
it's all right. I'm not a Woody Allen
that's
fan.
fine. Yeah,
It's fine. They got Road to
these
El
days, who is?
Dorado,
But
which is if you are, take a good look at yourself. Um, they got Road to El Dorado, which I think is fantastic, even if it's problematic these days. Well, not these days. It's always been problematic. You know, we're not. We're now like, oh, we should probably consider that. Um, Prince of Egypt is phenomenal. It's truly beautifully animated, absolutely incredible score, original songs, uh voice cast just out of your dreams. Um genuinely like fantastic stuff. Like it's now a musical on the West End. It's baffling that it took that long to get it up and running in that respect because it was built for it. It's And it's the story of Moses. It's the story of Ray Fiennes is the Pharaoh Ramesses, and they lean into this relationship between it's Exodus. It's a biblical story, and it is of biblical proportions. It is phenomenal. DreamWorks should be sounding their own trumpet about it every single day. It's their like it's better than Shrek. Like, come on, guys. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely insane how good it is. You'll all know the song that came from it. There can be miracles when you believe. That's from the Prince of Egypt when they've escaped Egypt, having slaughtered all the firstborns. And you see it. You see it happen in this kids movie. This kids
Ow.
movie musical. You see it happen. It's amazing. So we know DreamWorks have the capacity for greatness. And so I'm just so confused as to what B team got shoved into the limelight. Because also Madagascar is great. The Kung Fu Pandas are great. How to Train Your Dragon is great. I'm not coming for this movie studio. I think they're a good studio. I love the beef. I love the history of the beef between the Disneys and the DreamWorks. But this is such a bizarre inclusion in their archive, especially in the early 2000s when they had everything to prove. Because Disney's renaissance died in 1999 with Tarzan. Nobody likes Dinosaur. I'm not saying there weren't hits from that studio in the 2000s, Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, Atlantis, but they were not making the same amount of money. They were not making the same historical relevance as the 90s were. So DreamWorks stepped into the spotlight and they gave us really great stuff financially for them as well. Really great stuff. This movie doesn't make any sense to be included in that resume. I don't know why it's here. I don't know who is in charge of it. I know you told me. You literally told me who
Well,
wrote and directed it, but
I'm looking through their careers now to see if there's like a weak link amongst them. And like Bebo Bergeron, he also directed Road to El Dorado, so I'm crossing him off as a possible weak link.
mm,
This has cause there's three directors on this. There's three directors, two main writers, and a bunch of additional script people. So of the directors, where did they go? Yeah, Bebo Bergeron, not him. Vicky Jensen also directed Shrek,
oh my goodness.
so not her. And Rob Letterman, what did Rob Letterman do? He wrote and directed. He also directed. Oh, it could be this guy. This was like his first feature film director was Shark Tale, and then he did Monsters vs Aliens,
Which I
which
believe is good.
is
Like,
okay.
this is the
It's
thing, in
okay.
my memory, I was like, oh yeah, I would like it was fine. And I feel like if I had an appreciation for those old monster movies, maybe I could come at it and be like, actually, this is like a wonderful homage. I don't know though.
He also directed. He Gulliver's Travels, the Jack Black one.
Oh,
Goosebumps, the Jack Black one,
I like
which
that.
Mark worked on Goosebumps, so we have
Oh,
nothing bad to say about Goosebumps. It's a fun film.
I really did like
And
it.
more recently, Pokemon Detective Pikachu. He directed, so he's done some
I didn't
okay stuff.
hate that. Yeah, all 3 stars, three
Yeah.
star movies. Nothing
So
wrong
I'm
with a three star
not
movie.
saying, yeah, we're definitely not saying it's definitely Rob Letterman's fault. And then he wrote it alongside Michael J. Wilson, who also wrote Ice Age and Ice Age 2.
And
Well, that's based on characters. He wrote Ice Age.
Ice Age is one of the greatest movies ever written. Like,
It's a lot of fun. There's a
Ice
franchise I
Age.
really enjoy up until the fourth one. I never saw the fifth.
Do you know what?
Or
The first one is wonderful. The second one is bad. The third one is bad. The fourth one is great because they get rid of all those side characters they've been collecting for two movies and they bring it back to the OG3. Also, there's an
sure,
inclusion of a deeply southern grandmother, which, if you're going to include a character of that
played by
ilk,
Wanda Sykes.
I'm here for it. I cannot get enough of that
And
archetype.
the fourth one, I think we could. It's Continental Drift. We could cover that on this show. It's about pirates.
Oh my
It's about
god.
like prehistoric pirates, voiced by
Yes.
Peter Dinklage.
Yes.
We could like Jennifer Lopez is a saber-tooth tiger. We could um, we could cover it. We may cover it. It's going on the list. It's going on the list. We'll do it at some point.
um,
Like
yeah.
2 has a lot of water in it as well, but we'll skip 2. Great. Okay, so let's try and find some more good things about this film. They're in there somewhere. Like there's been a few moments that made us laugh. Like we talked
Oh
about
my goodness!
the
Of course. So they're trying to get Lenny to. This is the reason I introduced myself to the concept of coming on and talking about Shark Tale. Obviously, this is what we quote every day of my life. When Robert De Niro Shark is trying to convince Jack Black Shark to like eat a shrimp, and he's like, "Eat the shrimp, eat the shrimp," and he's like, "I don't want to eat the shrimp," and then the shrimp turns to Robert De Niro Shark, and he goes, "Please don't eat me. I've got so much to live for. Also, my sister had a baby, and I took it over because she passed away, and the baby lost all its legs and arms, and now it's just a stump. I take care of it with my wife, and it's growing, and it's fairly happy, and I have to work double shifts at the factory to make sure there's food on the table, but when I get home and I see the look on that little guy's face, it makes it all worth it." True story. It's amazing. How can you fault that? It's
well, and then
fantastic.
I can only fault that by when they let the shrimps go, the shrimps turn on the De Niro character and like we're gonna get you later, and then later De Niro gets kind of stuck in a porthole and the shrimps kind of attack him but don't really do
Yeah.
it. They just kind of bother him a little bit.
They just
And I was hoping there'd be like this whole shrimp army would come up and take him down in some fashion.
yeah, oh, 100%,
Uh,
yeah. But again, the movie's a bit thoughtless and it was just an excuse for them to be like, "Say hello to my little friends."
yeah.
Which no child is going to understand, except again, like I'm a massive fan of Magic Sword Quest for Camelot, which has so many references to movies I still haven't seen in my life. I still don't know where. Well, I do because I'm a nerd, but like, you can't handle the truth. I believe that's from A Few Good Men. Never seen
It
it.
is indeed
I don't need to see
a
it.
great film.
I will never see it. I've
It's
seen enough animated
it's
movies for children that came out in the 90s and the early 2000s that quoted it for me to be like, yeah, it's from A Few Good Men.
okay. There is
Magnificent.
more to A Few Good Men. That is the best scene. The courtroom scene is the best scene, and I will just happily just sit down and watch that like 8 minute sequence on YouTube just on a regular lunch break. But there is more to A Few Good Men than just that scene, and I would
No.
recommend it as a film to watch. The cast of A Few, if you think the cast of Prince of Egypt is great, look up the cast of A Few Good Men.
Oh,
My
isn't
God,
it Jennifer Connelly,
uh,
Tom Cruise, and Jack Nicholson just for starters?
it's Demi Moore, not Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, never mind then. I thought it was Jennifer Connelly. You might have had me with
It's
Jennifer
Demi
Connelly,
Moore,
but
Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, Kevin Pollak, Christopher Guest, Kevin
oh
Bacon,
my
Kiefer
goodness.
Sutherland.
They keep
It goes
coming.
it goes on and on. I mean, it's a Rob Reiner film. It's a Rob Reiner, Aaron Sorkin film, and so they knew a lot of people. They knew
Am
who
I
it
gonna
was.
have to add that to my letterbox wish list now? I think I am.
I think. I mean, it's a great film. But yeah, the scene everyone knows is the best scene, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So
because it's quoted in all the kids' movies. Even though the kids
yeah,
are like, what's A Few Good
you know,
Men?
I saw Chicken Run before The Great Escape,
Yeah.
and The Great Escape is now one of my favorite films. I still love Chicken Run, but Great Escape is in my top 4 on
Chicken Run
Letterboxd.
is Great
So
Escape for kids, and I think
it is.
but Chicken Run also has heart. It has storytelling
Mm.
and it has character arcs. What are the character
It has
arcs
jokes.
in Shark Tale? Who goes through a character arc? Because
Okay. So Oscar starts out wanting to be famous, becomes famous, isn't that happy about it because it's based on a lie, gives it up and runs a
but he
college.
is happy
That's his
about it.
character
The
arc.
only reason he ever has to come true is because he's stuck in a sticky situation. This is my point with this movie, I think. No, it's all by
I
accident
see.
and fluke that
Yeah.
these things happen. Oscar is never morally wrecked to a point where he feels the need to come through to it. They indicate that that's the case because they do this shoddy sort of wishy camera where he's like overwhelmed by everyone being like, "You've caught two sharks in the car wash. You're amazing. We love you." And he's like, "Oh God, okay, I'm overcome by guilt. Guess what? I'm not a shark slayer." It's not. If the sharks hadn't got caught in the car wash in front of everyone, he would never have come clean.
True. Yes, I hadn't considered that from that angle.
And
You're right.
that's the problem with this movie. Oscar is the worst. He never actually faces the consequences of his actions. Sure, he like turns down Lola or whatever her name, Angelina Jolie fish, and
Yeah.
again, though, his arrogance gets him into trouble all the time. He talks his way out of the meeting with the mob boss after they've kidnapped Angie, and they
by doing
pretend,
the MC Hammer dance,
honest to
of
God,
course.
kill me, like fully just like take me out back and shoot me. In 2004, you're doing the MC
Kill.
Hammer dance. The only reason any child would have a reference to that is because on their Bebo page, somebody might have posted the video from Family Guy when he does it. That's the only reason these kids are even going to know what you're talking about. Like, get some up to date references, DreamWorks. And, like, I just, he doesn't. Lenny eventually has to spit Angie out because he can't hold her in his mouth anymore. And then everything comes clean. But Oscar never makes the choice. Oscar never confronts his own hubris or background in any significant way to take accountability for his actions unless he's physically forced to in front of television cameras. And that's crap. Hate that. Like,
Yeah,
he
and
doesn't
like
have an heart.
Don Lino only comes around to he only accepts Lenny, who wants to be a vegetarian shark, dress up like a dolphin. He only accepts that because he's trapped in a car wash and can't get out,
And Oscar has to
basically.
give him a monologue of everybody loves Lenny for who he is. Why can't you? And only then is Robert De Niro like, fine, I guess. Like, sure, like, oh, get me out of here so I can hug my son.
Yeah.
Like he's forced into it again in front of cameras, in front of everyone, because somebody had to point it out for him. These characters don't make these realizations by themselves. You know what would have been empowering if Renee Zellweger Fish had been like, you know what, I deserve better, and walked away from Oscar, but she doesn't. She's like, oh, thank God he's finally noticed me. It's Martin Scorsese Fish knows that Renee Zellweger Fish is in love with flipping Will Smith
Everyone
Fish.
does. Everyone other than Oscar
Except
does, because
Oscar,
Oscar
which
doesn't look
is
outside himself.
run, girl, swim away, swim away. It's so depressing, and that's the main problem with this movie. Like, Shrek is willing to remain a human for Fiona, and she is willing to become an ogre again for him. And that's true love, and that's storytelling, and that's character arcs, and that's growth, and that's progress, and that's from A to B to C of Shrek's character throughout Shrek 2. Oscar doesn't do any of that. No one does. No one does anything. I hate the like Ziggy Marley jellyfish. I just everything about this movie is
Deeply
awful.
creepy.
Oh,
Jellyfish with teeth. Deeply creepy.
horrible.
Upsetting. And yeah, they're voiced by Diggy Marley and Dougie Doug
Mm,
from Cool Runnings. Uh,
yes.
the egg Sanka, the egg loving guy. So that was fun. But yeah, we made a real good effort to try and find positive things, and then
And
it just
and
went on
don't
another
get me wrong,
tirade.
I've just found a note that I've written. Every moment with weight is immediately disrupted. So when Renee Zellweger Fish finds out that Oscar's been lying, confesses her love for him, she's like, you've betrayed me. You've betrayed the reef. You've lied to everyone. And he's like, nobody loved me when I was a nobody. And Renee Zellweger is putting in such a phenomenal voice performance. And she's like, I did. I loved you when you were a nobody. And you didn't even care. And now you've literally highlighted in front of both of us that you clearly nothing was good enough for you in your old life, including me. And that makes me feel dreadful. Unfortunately, it's punctuated with the second best moment of this movie, where Jack Black Shark comes out dressed as a dolphin, going, I'm Sebastian, the whale wafting dolphin. And it's another thing that I quote every single day of my life. But I'd forgotten that it literally punctuates the only bit of this movie that has any emotional weight behind it. So then we're like laughing because Jack Black has just delivered one of the greatest lines of all time and done a phenomenal dolphin impression. And then we're suddenly back to Renee Zellweger Fish being like, I hope you're happy, Oscar. I never want to speak to you again. And it's don't get me wrong, I love a tonal problem with a movie. Again, for the second time this episode, Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. 100%. Let's go from setting the mill on fire and Phoebus having to rescue the miller and his family and then being shot and presumed dead in the water to the Seinfeld gargoyle giving us a stupid song where they rhyme croissant with what is it? I don't even know, but like they rhyme croissant with something and it's amazing. And I love that. I'm absolutely in love with that tonal shift. The Black Cauldron, give me more. Like, just don't be sure what you're doing and give me more of it. This isn't even that. This isn't a tonal shift. This feels a purposeful thing of like, oh, we don't want the kids to be too down for too long. So let's get a joke in there and then we can come back to it. And it's like, no, what you've done now is ripped out any emotional foundation that this movie was resting on that gives any child an investment in your characters and your story for them to care. And you know what happens when a kid cares? They come back. They buy the merchandise. It's in your favor, Katzenberg, for children to adhere to these movies because they want the pencil case if they love Oscar, if they love Angie. They don't want the pencil case if they can't remember Oscar's name as soon as they've left the cinema. And you get them to remember Oscar's name by giving him hubris that is actually met with some consequence, with arcs that actually mean something, with emotional weight that isn't punctuated by silly jokes. I'm sorry, line about Sebastian the Whale Watching Dolphin. You're not silly, but you know what I mean. Like that's the problem with this movie, and that's why we're struggling to beyond the very superficial aspects of like fantastic puns on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And I'm really just trying to see anything in my notes that's a positive beyond the like silly sushi jokes and the incredible monologues by Shrimp. There's nothing here, and it's because they ruin it for themselves, seemingly on purpose, which is why it sucks the most.
Uh, just to circle back, they rhymed croissant with Adonis.
Yes, I knew it was something
There's-
incredible.
it's like at some Adonis is rhymed with like a croissant is
Yeah,
in the song
it's amazing.
A Guy
Isn't that
Like You.
the best
So
thing you've ever heard? Isn't it just
sure,
fantastic? I hope that person got an Oscar. I know they didn't, but they should have done. If
I
Lion
mean
King
they
got
might
an
have done.
Oscar,
They might
100%
not
should
have
have
gone
got.
for that song, but they probably had. They might have an Oscar at this
Yeah,
point,
someone
depending
that
who
comes
wrote
up with that
that song.
will have had an
Uh,
Oscar.
Good. Do you reckon they named Will Smith's character Oscar to try and get the film an Oscar because it was
It
nominated for
was
Best
nominated,
Animated
but only
Feature?
because we're in 2004 and they only introduced the animation category into the Academy Awards in 2001 in order to give it to Shrek. So they'd set a precedent that it was kind of going to go to DreamWorks all the time. I don't know what one that. Oh, I want to
Uh,
perhaps
uh,
Spirited
it
Away.
was The Incredibles. The Incredibles won that year.
Ah, okay, yeah, no, fair enough. So like already Disney's sub companies had sort of come back in and been like, stop. Sorry, if there's an animation award, it's going to us. Which like good. Because like I don't know if Eisenberg had left by that point, but Eisner, sorry, not Eisenberg. Who's Eisenberg? Oh, he's if Eisner and Katzenberg had a baby, which never happened because they hated each other. But yeah, Michael Eisner, the CEO of the Disney company during the 90s, never wanted to make anything of value. He just wanted to make money. But yeah, of course it went to The Incredibles because that was a heartfelt, wholesome story about family, not a
Uh,
shallow fish story about celebrity.
Stephen Schwartz did the lyrics for A Guy Like You, and he has 3 Oscars
Oh,
uh,
good.
for Pocahontas, 2 for Pocahontas,
Oh,
and 1 for The Prince of Egypt.
hey, see,
Uh,
see,
yeah,
and
there
this
we
is
go.
the thing. If you listen to the songs from the Prince of Egypt, like you know that that's the guy that rhymed Adonis with a croissant is. Like you can hear it. You're like, oh yeah, I send the locust on the wind, such as the world has never seen. Oh yeah, it's phenomenal. Shout out to the Prince of Egypt. Shout out to the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Love you, Stephen Schwartz. I know you. You come up on my Spotify all the time. I'm
There we
still
go.
listening
Yeah.
to Mel Gibson sing in Pocahontas.
So, Colors of the Wind was the best original song in 1995 that he won for. He also won for the score for Pocahontas and yeah, When You Believe,
The
the Prince of
score,
Egypt.
the score for Pocahontas is incredible. Like people forget, like it's so It's so good. That and the synthy bit in Mulan. Like, if you ever need to get anything done, stick that stuff on in the background. It's so inspirational, so motivational. It's yeah, good stuff. I'm glad he has 3 Oscars. He deserves them.
Great. um, I'm just gonna run down through my notes, see if I find anything else I liked as well. Like the kind of just the how does this world work when the squid guy is like pouring coffee and it kind of drifts behind him.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. That's the kind of stuff like yes, that's how this work. Compare that to when the three kids that Lenny's talking to, when they managed to spray paint.
Yeah, so even again, they're breaking their own rules. You got like, and they do that several times. They break their own rules in their own world, which just even kids can see through. You're like, you didn't what? I don't. Oh, stupid.
And they spray paint like really well and really quickly.
Hmm.
So like, which good for them, I guess, but
No,
it just didn't feel believable.
no.
And one of them is voiced by Bobby J. Thompson, who was one of the kids from Role Models. If anyone remembers
Aww.
that film. One thing that really irritated me, they have the news reporter fish
Yes.
called Katie Current,
Mm-hmm.
based on Katie Couric, who in America that character was voiced by Katie Couric.
Yes.
In England, that character voiced by Fiona Phillips,
DreamWorks do
but
that a
still
lot.
right, but still called Katie Current.
Yeah.
Fiona Phillips is right there. Stick it
Oh,
there.
mate, where's your you email DreamWorks right now. Get them to amend
Right.
that. People
So
thought
that
I
was
was
irritating.
crazy when I was like the stepsister in Shrek is Jonathan Ross, and they were like, "No, it's not." And I was like,
the
"Yes, it is." But it
the
is on
food
the
critic in
UK
Ratatouille is
list.
Jamie Oliver. Like Jeremy Clarkson has a voice in the English version of Cars.
It's
They
bizarre.
always, yeah.
They keep doing it, and like I kind of understand why. Again, as a child, I don't know who Fiona Phillips is. Like, I don't get that
As
reference.
an adult, I don't remember who Fiona
Yeah,
Phillips is. I had to. I
ITV,
recognize that
right?
name. Who is she?
Something like that.
Yes.
And I only know that because I
Um.
also was on the Wikipedia page going, why is that fish British for some reason? Oh, it's because
Yeah.
I'm British. I get one British fish. Okay, cool. Bizarre.
She was on GMTV at the time.
That was it.
And like with these other like pop culture things, they have instead of Gap, Oscars doing adverts for Gup.
Go.
Fine, that's a good translation of Gap to Gup in the fish world. They have a Burger King. They just call Burger Fish. That's
Uh,
Beluga King.
oh,
I feel like is a
nice.
punch up on that one.
Krispy
Just this
Kreme
this
was just Krispy Kreme, but then the thing they
I
got
was
from Krispy Kreme was the fish pun, I think. It was like
I think
clam
they had a wasn't it
something.
Kelpie cream or something?
Oh, did it say
I
Kelpie
thought,
cream? Oh, yeah, no, that
and
makes more
instead of
sense.
Coca Cola, it was Coral Cola.
I'll allow
Which
it.
these are fine,
They're
but
weak
like
though. They're one
but
day in the drawing room.
Burger Fish has
Burger
just
Fish is
irritated me. Um,
that's unforgivable. Like that's
uh,
ridiculous.
um, this is one of the last films that Peter Falk did work on. He voices the elderly leopard shark who farts all the time.
Do you know what? That character is fun. I do enjoy him.
But I just feel sad that that's one of Peter Falk's last credits is voicing
Oh,
a
I've just
farting
realized
shark.
who he is. He's the granddad
He's
from the
Columbo.
he's the granddad
Yeah,
from
he's
the Princess Bride,
the
isn't
Princess
he?
Bride, and he's Columbo. He's a legend,
It's
and one of his last
giving
roles is a farting
it's
shark.
giving Orson Welles in the Transformers movies. It's giving final
Absolutely,
roles
yes,
in like poor animated movies for children. I've not seen the Transformers
absolutely.
movie. I'm sorry. Don't don't email me. Don't
Hey,
at
me
me.
neither. I
I'm
haven't seen it
sure
either.
it's
It
fine.
has its fans from the time. I think it's been somewhat
Sure it does.
overshadowed by Michael Bay.
Yes,
Uh,
of course.
I did enjoy the character of Crazy Joe. He's not in it a lot. When he crops up, just he's
Wow.
like Oscar's friend who lives in the dumpster, who becomes his
Yeah.
like financial advisor and hides in his shell and watches Benny Hill.
I feel
He
like
just like
we've
these
seen
weird
him
non sequitur
before, though.
jokes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that character exists in like every animated movie. There's just a
Oh yeah,
character that's like, do you know who he is? He's a Wish version, like a poor man's version of um the reindeer from Robbie the reindeer that trains Robbie.
I
The
haven't
one that
seen
lives
Robbie
on a
the
hill.
reindeer. I haven't seen Robbie the reindeer. I'm sorry. Uh,
Why are these episodes always me going, Jay, you have to go see this movie? What the
we're
hell?
I feel like there's only 4 years. I'm only 4 years older than you, but
There's
the
a
I
real.
feel like
It's because the
so much.
VHS
There's a
took off,
golf.
and there was so
No, I
much
feel like
content
it's
coming
because you're
out.
it's because you're from a family that liked films,
It's true.
and
It's
I'm
true. So
not.
I've seen a lot of kids' movies. That's why my podcast is all about movies from your childhood, because that was my
Yeah,
life.
and I came on to talk about not a kids' film. I came on to
Yes,
talk about
it's so
Daylight.
true. It's so true.
So,
As a child, I was
uh,
watching disaster movies. Okay.
absolutely love the
You know
Poseidon
what? It's a
Adventure.
generational thing though, because my dad came on to talk about Zulu, and that genuinely was his favorite childhood movie. And I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh my
okay.
god, you're just doing this to make me watch
I'm
Zulu, aren't you?"
I'm sure that's one of your favorites.
Mm.
Zulu, a real Emily film.
I was pleasantly surprised with it, but yeah,
I mean, I'll watch anything Michael Caine is in,
it's fair. It's
but
valid.
we've covered him several times on this show already. He's in the Poseidon Adventure sequel, for instance,
Hey,
which
nice.
isn't great, but is fun. Yeah. The introduction of the Lola character to the song "Gold Digger" is the most on nose thing I've ever
I
seen in
feel
any
like
film ever.
everything in this movie is very on the nose. That 100% is it. He's
But then
barely in
it
this
does lead.
movie as well.
It's true. It does lead to when she's talking to Oscar, and it becomes clear that he doesn't have a lot of money. She says like, "Oh, deep down, I'm really superficial," and swims off. I liked that because like they're having fun with that character because obviously
Yeah,
she's
the upfrontness of it
but
all. Yeah,
yeah,
I do
that made
enjoy
me
that.
smile.
And then
Uh,
later on she gets to have her like femme fatale moment where she's like, the only thing I like more than money is revenge.
yes,
I'm
and it
like,
beats him up,
yeah.
just throwing him against the window.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great stuff. This is the thing.
no,
I
that
think there's
was
a
fun.
good movie in here. I don't know what it is. I haven't thought that deep about it. I'll let you know. I'll send you like a whole email of my like reimagining of Shark Tale. There's gotta be there's good beats, there's good ideas. Don't get me wrong, I love a team up of a loser with a monster to convince townspeople. Like it's honestly it's the best thing that's ever happened in cinema, but they just don't quite get it here. And even Lenny's voice that Jack Black is doing is like a it's walking so Poe can run later on.
Yeah, it's kind
Even
of
even
a
that
bit
it's
whiny, a bit
a bit
nasally.
way too
Yeah.
pathetic, yeah. And yeah, and Will Smith is still annoying. He's not giving me
Yeah,
Fresh Prince, he's giving me slapping at the Oscars in this movie. Hey.
yeah. I find just the animation style, the look of the fish is upsetting.
It's disgusting. I can't believe it's taken us nearly an hour before we've started talking about what these fish look like, because that is most people's problem with
Yeah,
this movie. It's disgusting.
and
And you can justify Shrek with they were trying to do something different. They were trying to make humans look more human or whatever. They were trying to distance themselves from the Disney aesthetic, whatever. These fish have weird hands coming out of
yeah,
their
the fact
fins.
that
They tried to
they
make their faces
stand
look like the
upright.
actor but didn't.
Yeah.
They stand up. They've got like his fin splits apart to look like
Ugh.
trousers. It's
Like all the
disgusting.
fish keep
So
folding
gross.
their arms. Like, no,
Ugh.
stop doing
And
this.
not enough fun, like how animation movies tend to get snakes to like look
No,
kind of
that's
human.
great. When a
Like
snake
it's
can
so
shrug,
clever.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah, so good. This is not that. This is like not even. You'd say this to one of the animators for this movie, and they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Like they've not taken inspiration from anything.
Yeah.
They've just done what is the most convenient and simple. They're like, "Let's do fish, but like let's do this story, but set it underwater for some reason." And what they should have done is just made a live action version of this somehow. I don't know. That would probably have been better because at
I
least
don't
then we'd
know.
get to see Angelina Jolie.
True,
You
but
know.
I think if you take out any kind of fish punness from this film, there's very little left.
There's nothing left.
Yeah,
It's as superficial and shallow as Oscar himself.
absolutely. One other joke that I just had to point out that I liked when they're having a phone conversation with the squid over the phone. He's like, "Nod your head if you understand."
Yeah,
Now tell me if you nodded your head. Maybe smile. Just
I nodded.
it's stupid.
It is the
Uh,
It's the thing, and I think those are the bits that are staying with the children. Those are the bits that stayed with my sister. Those are the bits that seeped into me. Like there's funny bits in this movie because of course there is. We've said the DreamWorks company are not bad at writing good scripts. They can come up with jokes. They just missed on the most important part, which was telling a good story with character arcs. everything else around it, the world building in a way, the adult references, the jokes, like like there's good stuff in here. They just missed on the most fundamental part of this movie making process, which is a shame.
I agree.
Did DreamWorks do Sinbad? Because Sinbad was also good.
I haven't seen Sinbad.
Oh, it's
They
good.
did
It's good. It's good
Spirit,
stuff.
Stallion of the Cimarron. They did
See,
do Sinbad.
I've
Yes,
never seen Spirit.
me neither.
So Sinbad is another one. Just to tack on, Sinbad is a little bit Shark Tale-y. I like it though because I prefer the world and the Catherine Zeta-Jones with a pixie cut. What's not to like? Brad Pitt as Sinbad. Sinbad never learns a lesson in that movie. Spoilers for Sinbad. He's abhorrent and he never learns. He doesn't go through an arc. He doesn't have to face the consequences of his actions literally ever. He gets away scot free. And they kind of get away with it in Sinbad, but that's another reason why I think that one fell off the radar, fell off the DreamWorks radar, because there's no consequences. There's no good storytelling. There's no, I liked it for all the superficial reasons that people might enjoy Shark Tale. But DreamWorks were doing this. They would bring it for every A movie, they had a B movie, and the B movies really did suffer. And people will call Road to El Dorado a B movie, but it is not. It's an A movie, and I won't hear anything bad about it.
Okay, well, I think Sinbad, Legends of the Seven Seas could well go on our list of films to cover, given that
Yes, there's so much
it's
C. There's
aquatic.
7 of them.
That's plenty. That's enough to warrant being on the show. Great. But I haven't seen it. We'll do one day. Good. But I think we should stop talking about Shark Tale because we've drowned it. It is flailing in the water. We're going to end here with how is it similar to Deep Blue Sea? I have a list. It's quite a decent list. There's sharks. There's a generation of sharks. We talk about sharks and parentage of sharks in this film. There's Jaws references. There's a rapper in the cast. There's a fish tank underwater because Donalino has a tank of piranha in the same way that in Aquatica, Janice has a tank of fish in her room. They
Yes.
talk about sharks' position in the food chain. Sharks behaving in an unusual manner. It's a reference in Lenny doesn't
I'll
eat
take it.
doesn't eat fish, and these sharks can recognize guns. There's a Sopranos cast member. They
Hey.
they electrocute sea creatures because the jellyfish can electrocute for some reason. It's filmed in quotation marks on the set of the Titanic because that's where the sharks live, but also the tanks that they used to make Deep Blue Sea in is where they shot Titanic. A character goes through despair on an elevator. Lenny is as clumsy as Thomas Jane is in Deep Sea. A
Nice.
character talks to camera at one point. The whale wash has like a radio tower where there's dancing happens in that, just like the radio tower in Aquatica has dancing at one point. A shark has a license plate in his mouth at one point. A big lie is revealed later on, and a cast member
Mm.
sings over the credits at the end. We didn't mention the song, the car wash song. How do we not
The
mention
song
car
that was
wash?
invented for this movie, right? The song
I
that
think
I
so.
only ever knew as associated with this movie. Missy
Yes.
Elliott and Christina Aguilera.
And we have fish, Missy Elliott, and jellyfish, Christina Aguilera, at the end to sing the song.
Because DreamWorks is still in that era where they only know how to wrap up a movie by having a big old dance party.
I mean, it works. If
I'll allow it.
it's a highlight of the film is the song is good. I do have a pet peeve with the song in that they changed some lyrics. They changed the you might run into a cop and a thief to an engineer. I'm an engineer.
Oh.
I would say we're not the most fun people to bump into at a car wash. Like of all the kind of people to be like, oh, I might run into an engineer. Like that shouldn't be exciting.
That's strange. When you said that they changed the lyrics, I thought you were going to say like a cod and a fish instead of a cop and a thief. I don't know. I felt there was going to be a fish pun coming, but
No,
they just fully
this is
changed it
just
to be like
we
an
can't. Yeah,
engineer. Like,
we can't
what?
have like cops and
Okay.
and thieves in a kids song. Engineers. That's what I find it very odd.
In
I,
this
I
movie,
always
they
have.
introduced the concept of a superficial gold digger. Yeah, no, can't do that.
And there's
As like a
yeah.
sympathetic character. I know.
And one last thing we have to do is how deep and how blue is this film?
Yes.
This one threw up some issues. I know this isn't obviously set in the real
Oh.
world. So the sharks live. Oh no! Oh, hang on. Do you think, Emily? So listeners, as in watching this film, I've worked out on average how deep all the action takes place at, and how blue all the action is throughout the film. Deep Blue Sea is on average 14.5 meters deep, about 31% blue. Emily, do you think Shark Tale is deeper and or bluer than Deep Blue Sea?
I think it's bluer.
Hmm.
I think it's deeper because we're by the Titanic. We're down by the Mariana Trench.
Okay, so this is where it gets tricky. They're in the
Mm.
Titanic. The Titanic is 3,800 meters deep. That's where the
Hmm.
sharks live. Uh, Cleaner wrasses can only live up to 40 meters deep. So
Oh,
they like
I'm
to
getting
hang out on coral
scientific.
reefs about 40 meters deep. But I'm going as that's where they're comfortable. That's where he likes to live. So he
Okay.
could maybe survive for a short amount of time for a shark business meeting, 12,500 feet deep. Maybe, who knows? So I've taken it as the reef is 40 meters deep, but the top of the reef is a little bit shallower than that because just the top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What throws this completely out of proportion is the opening credits. We
Oh.
have the DreamWorks logo,
Oh
which kind
yeah.
of fizzles into the film to have the boy of the DreamWorks logo sat on the moon fishing. That becomes part of the film because he casts a worm that Lenny and Frankie have a conversation about eating. So that
Isn't that
the
insane? I kind of love
right.
it.
So firstly, the length of that fishing line, my word. But
Madness.
so I have to factor that into the depth of the film. In which case, there's
Oh.
3 seconds of this film that are 384,400 kilometers up in the air.
No.
So,
Oh.
like if I don't factor that in, then this is our
Mm.
seventh deepest film. It's 160. It's 644 meters deep on average, 2,113 feet, which puts it deeper than the abyss, shallower than Sphere. If I do
Okay.
factor in those few seconds up on the moon, this is by far our least deep film, being on
Oh.
average 212,516 meters up in the air. So that makes it. Um, our next deepest is Virus, which has some stuff up on a satellite, which is 6,000
Oh.
meters up in the air. So this is like 3.5 times. No, sorry, 35 times as high as Virus.
Oh. I was so convinced because it looked like they got really deep down in there. They could look.
Yeah, I don't
Oh.
feel good about including this because it's I mean it's not really part of
You're
the
right though,
film.
it because my first note of this movie is like insane opening, the
Yeah,
transition from the DreamWorks guy into a character in the movie, like our introduction to the deep is through the DreamWorks logo. Madness, like kind of love it
but the
for
DreamWorks
its
logo is
insanity,
is very blue.
but it's on the
It
moon.
is
It
on,
is very
yeah,
blue, and I watched Deep Blue Sea 3 times in one day recently, so I
sure.
feel like I have a good grasp on how you're like, that's an average Sunday.
Yeah, that's great. That's a week. Yeah,
That's what we expect from people.
and we're
I
not
feel
gonna
like I
we're
have
not
a
gonna
grasp
say
of
why
how
you
blue
did that
it
either.
is.
Well,
No.
Shark Tale is about 41% blue. I worked out, so that is
That's
11%
more.
bluer
That's
than Deep
more.
Blue Sea.
Yeah. That's bluer.
Which
Yeah.
means it is bluer than Swim Fan, slightly less blue than Deep Blue Sea 3, only slightly. So it's our
Oh,
26th bluest film on the ranking so far. See,
that's
I Shark Tale, I feel bad about making it the 102nd bluest film, or 101st bluest film on it. But that's where it has to go, I'm afraid.
where it has to go.
I was gonna say I don't make the rules. I do
Yeah.
make the rules. I made this whole concept.
Yeah.
But that's where it needs to be. So I'm sorry. It's the highest film we'll ever do, and it's actually it's not. There's one on the list that is definitely higher, but we'll maybe cover that film at a later date. I don't know. We'll see. Good. Well, that will do it for Shark Tale. Thank you, Emily, for joining me once again. What would you like to plug?
Why This Film podcast is still out and about, covering movies from your childhood, but it's primarily been taken over on the same feed by In a Barbie World, which you'll need to type in order to find either of these things, where Stephen Palmer and myself are going through all of the BCU, the Barbie Cinematic Universe. It's fantastic. They never let us down. We're big fans, and we most recently did our actual look on the 2023 Closest to World Peace movie, which was Barbie, the live action outing, and yeah, go check it out.
Yeah, it's a great episode. About a great film. That yeah, I have too many people in my life that I argue with whether that's good or not. I don't understand how.
I don't.
Yeah.
I think people are too scared to even attempt striking up that conversation with me because they like come into my domain, and even just from just where I'm sitting right now, I can see a Barbie pen and a Barbie hoodie and a Barbie where I keep my nail varnish is in like a Barbie sort of pack and Barbie perfume. Like I just there's no point. Everyone's like, oh, there's no point telling Emily that the Barbie movie sucked because she just will shove me under an oncoming vehicle, so I won't bother. And it's true.
So Deep Blue Sea, this podcast you can find on social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. You can find all of Mark's stuff over at movies, films, and flicks.com, and everything I do over at lifeversusfilm.com. My recent appearances on Fight Club Minute are now out, so you can go and hear me talk about Fight Club with Bubba Wheat, who's been on this show to talk about Aquaman a couple of years ago.
Nice.
I have the scene where they go and harass the guy who works in the convenience store, which is fun, and they talk. Yeah,
Nice.
in which we realise that Tyler Durden is the origin of Jigsaw, because of everything. Yeah, great.
Oh,
So find that over at Fight Club Minute somewhere on podcasting, I guess. Next week on this show, what are we doing next week? Next week, I can't remember. I haven't got the spreadsheet open. All of these are bad things. Next week is our fourth episode of our Hunger Games franchise that we're doing. Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 2. We talk about next week. Another film that Mark worked on. We have recorded that episode. It was a good time. That's when we talk about Finnick dying. My boy Finnick. My poor boy Finnick.
spoilers!
Okay. Have you not seen it?
Of course I have.
Yeah.
I love the Hunger Games.
And like, it's a traumatizing moment. So I need to warn people. Finnick dies. I love Finnick so much. And they
He's
kill
so
him.
wonderful.
They kill him in a sewer. They do him dirty.
They do him so dirty. It's not fair.
I was not prepared for that when I saw it first time around because I did not read the
Sam
books.
Claflin, Suffolk boy, Sam Claflin.
Indeed, love Sam Claflin. Should be in everything.
Love him.
I want him in Deep Blue Sea 4. Sam Claflin needs to happen.
Yes, wouldn't he be so wonderful?
He'd be great. He could bring his trident. Good. Anyway, that's what we'll talk about next week. None of this will be referenced because we're recording this 2 weeks after we recorded that, but that's fine. But as for Shark Tale, thank you once again to my guest, Emily Slade.
Thank you.
I've been Jake Lure, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.